a regular board meeting or a special meeting for the Desert Water Agency on April 30th, 2024 at 8 o'clock. And ask that those of you who might be attending virtually, that you please mute your speakers until and unless you're ready to make some public comment. For those of us in the room, if we could make sure that our mobile devices are switched off or silenced, also to avoid interruption during the meeting. So we'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with, we just had our little housekeeping, and I'll call on directors in the following roll call order: Director Gracia, Director Bloomer, Secretary Treasurer McKenna, Vice President Bowman, who is absent this week, and President Ortega. And with that, we will we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll do a roll call. So I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Hoffman, if you would take the roll, please.
Director Gracia,
Present.
Director Bloomer,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Present.
Vice President Bowman's absence is noted, and President Ortega.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, so we can now move to that would be item 4, public comment. We'll start with items that are not currently listed on our agenda. If there are members of the public who are attending virtually or in the room who would like to speak, we ask that you keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If it's an item that is not on our agenda today, we will not be able to act on it or speak directly to it as a board, but we will then, have we received any public comment via email or otherwise?
None.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no one online or at the podium, we could move to public comment for items that are on our agenda. Again, we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we can move to item 5, which is the consent calendar. If there are any board members who would like to pull an item on the consent calendar for further discussion, you can let us know now. No? So we will, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar items as presented.
Okay, thank you. I have first and looking for.
I'll second.
Okay. A first from Director Gracia, a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman's absence is noted, and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 6, we have one action item regarding strategic planning services vendor selection. And Mr. Johnson, if you'd like to give us a report on that, please.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. So back in September, the board directed staff to begin the process of establishing a strategic plan for the agency. And then in November, we worked with the executive committee to develop a strategy on how to proceed. And staff then prepared an RFP, which we submitted to 5 potential service providers. We received 3 proposals back, one from RGS, one from Woodard and Kern, and the third from SC Executive. RGS was identified as the best, who provided the best understanding of what the agency was looking for a plan and the lowest price. And we began contract negotiations with RGS. During those negotiations, staff had requested, we requested that language be removed from the contract that RGS had provided. That was section 17.3, which was obligations and indemnified related to defined benefit retirement plan participation. This was a section we asked to be removed. Unfortunately, RGS was not agreeable to this request. And for that, staff is recommending that we end negotiations with RGS and consider two other options. The first would be to proceed with contract negotiations with Woodard and Kern. They were the second rated vendor, and their cost was $89,000. The second option would be is to develop a new RFP and limit the scope to creating a mission and vision statement only, and allowing the agency to evaluate that effectiveness over time and then revisit the development of a strategic plan at a later date. Fiscal impact. So if the board elects to move forward with contract negotiations with Woodard and Kern, fiscal impact would be $89,000. If the board elects to develop a new RFP, there would be no fiscal impact at this time. Legal counsel has reviewed this report, and it is staff's recommendation that we end negotiations with RGS and that we develop a new RFP limiting the project scope to creating a mission and vision statement only, allowing the agency to evaluate the effectiveness over time and revisit the development of a strategic plan at a later date. And be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Director Gracia, questions?
Well, I think the timing of this is perfect, actually. My hope is that we will table it for a bit. I'm going to talk about a meeting that I attended with the State Water Quality Resource Control Board. And during that meeting, certain things were said so often and so hard that I can't help but believe that we're going to need to be studying other things that might be related to what would be in this report, and I'd like to see that develop more before we move forward. I'll talk about that further at director's comments. So unless you want to hear about it now, but it has to do with all kinds of things that I brought up here before, and I don't think we're going to I think we'd be better served to wait a little while, okay? And so that'll be my recommendation if you're looking for a motion. But other than that, I'll let you guys talk about it.
Okay, thank you. Director Boomer.
I don't have any questions. I am in favor of staff's recommendation for the new RFP with the limited scope to the mission and vision. So.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
I have a third opinion.
Okay.
I don't see the usefulness of a mission and vision statement because it'll just be, no one will ever read it after. I would like to go straight ahead and go with Woodard and Kern. They are the same people that did Mission Springs, and it's basically the same price. So I think when I read Mission Springs, there's a lot of useful stuff in it. So my inclination would be to go with your option one, which is proceed with Woodard and Kern.
Okay, thank you. Can you perhaps, Mr. Johnson, can you remind us why the second proposal, or how the proposal that we're talking about in option one now may have differed from the preferred or the original preferred with RGS?
So Woodard and Kern, number one, their price was a factor. It was $89,000 versus a $27,000 cost for RGS. The second approach that we looked at was the understanding of the agency's RFP on how the agency wanted to approach developing the plan. And RGS, their scope of work was in line with what the agency was looking for. Woodward and Kern diverted from that, and therefore they were ranked at a lower score. If we did move forward with Woodward and Kern, we would need to discuss that with them. And it's basically on how they were approaching developing the mission statement and the vision statement and the workshops and so forth. It didn't follow what the RFP laid out.
Okay. Do you anticipate at this point, and maybe really hard for you to say, but do you anticipate that being a difficult conversation with them as far as restructuring the process?
I'm sure they'd be willing to modify their plan based on what we're requesting. I know that they worked with Mission Springs Water District, and they had they performed in a structured way, and I can't answer whether they would want to, but I would assume that they approach this work in a structured way, and then it's of a template that they prefer to do it as.
Sure.
And,
Okay. And can you remind us, was this, was a strategic plan budgeted for in this year?
yes.
And do you recall what the amount would have been?
For the budget, I believe that our budget would cover the cost of the Woodward and Kern proposed amount.
Okay.
Director Sines would, unfortunately, she's not here today, but
I know. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
yeah.
Okay.
But I don't, that was not, when we evaluated the proposals, we did not throw out their proposal because it went over budget.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Well, I mean, I'm inclined to support option one for the same reasons that Secretary Treasurer McKenna has already said. I don't know that just developing a mission and vision statement is that beneficial in the long run, or at least in the short term for us. And I have been wanting to do a strategic plan for probably the last year. So I would be more inclined to go with option one versus option two, but I'll look for a motion, someone to make a motion, and we'll take it from there.
I move that we proceed with option one on the staff recommendations.
Okay. And I'll second that. So we have a first from Secretary Treasurer McKenna and a second from President Ortega. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
No.
Director Bloomer,
No.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman's absence is noted,
Right.
and President Ortega.
Aye. All right, so I'll look for another motion to be made.
I move we table this until the next meeting. Mr. Bauman can maybe break that tie in. your
Okay.
favor.
I do
Go
have
ahead.
one,
Yes.
just one comment on option number one. I feel like if they didn't follow the RFP of what we wanted, we shouldn't have to tell them what type of structure to do. I mean, I just don't feel like it's a viable option
Mm-hmm.
at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And like Director Gracia said, there's so much stuff coming with conservation as a way of life, Chromium 6, all that stuff is going to go into kind of, I think, should be part of our strategic plan, since it's going to be, conservation as a way of life is going to be in effect from now going forward, and we're not even sure exactly what that looks like at this point.
Okay. So, Secretary Treasurer McKenna, you've
Yeah, I have a suggestion that we develop a new RFP, send it back out, but not limited to mission and vision statement. You know, I think that just doesn't get us anywhere. So a compromise maybe is to put out the RFP again and tell these people that you must stick exactly to what we're asking for, and see if Woodward and Karen will come up with something different.
is that a motion?
It is a motion.
Okay.
A long one.
Is there a second? I'll second that. So we have a first from Secretary Treasurer McKenna and a second from President Ortega. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia?
No.
No?
No.
Sorry, thank you. Director Bloomer?
No.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
Aye.
Vice President Bowman's absence is noted, and President Ortega.
Aye. So at this point, per Director Gracia's suggestion of tabling this matter, do we need to take a vote on that, or can we just proceed to do that through executive committee to put it on the agenda again?
I believe you can just table it
Okay,
with no vote.
okay.
I think my
Yes.
suggestion would
Yeah.
be maybe to staff for the next executive committee meeting, for staff to come up with kind of what that new RFP would look like. Whether, mission, vision,
Mhm.
whatever that
Okay.
would kind of entail.
That's a good suggestion. Is that possible for the next executive, which is, I guess, in 2.5 weeks?
General terms, what it would,
Yeah.
what it would look like.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
And, just to, the RFP had different stages of the one that we put together. One of the tasks, or the first task, was developing the mission and vision statement. So
Sure.
that was task one. Then second task was to develop that further into the strategic plan. So just wanted to note that for the board.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we'll move to the next item, which is 7, General Manager's Report. Mr. Johnson?
All right, thank you. This first item is regarding our Solar 2 inverter building. When we constructed our solar facilities, we placed our inverters in buildings with air conditioning. We did that for our first solar project, which was built in 2005. And then we did it again with our second inverter when we built the second project. And what we have found was that the air conditioning, our original inverters in our first solar project are still operational, and they're almost 20 years old, which is, I think the life expectancy was 10 to 12 years, so they've doubled in life, and it was because of the air conditioning. That was the only factor that we've been told that we've done different than other outdoor type facilities. For our building 2, what we were finding is that our air conditioning units were cutting out. And so we had a firm come out and do an evaluation as to determine, what was going on. And what they found was that because of how they were constructed, they were basically short-circuiting. They were drawing in the hot air from their exhaust because they're so close to each other. And to alleviate that, they recommended putting in what are called plenums. And it's basically just an elongated vent to allow the air to distribute away from the units. And we found that this has solved the problem. And this work cost us around $3,600, but it was well worth it to have us have those buildings air conditioned. Second item is our spring tour. We held that on April 24th, and very successful. They did visit on the tour the Well 39, the Palisades Reservoir, and the rec plant, and our laboratory. And here's some great photos. Feedback has been that was very informative and very appreciative. I believe Director Ortega and Director Gracia, I believe, attended Director Grassi the afternoon, and Director Ortega was in the morning, I believe. So, and McKenna too. McKenna in the afternoon too. Oh, okay, great. But that was a great event. Staff worked very hard to ensure that people were educated and could answer the questions, and proud of the staff. The next item is just some activities going on with staffing. There's been some promotions, some hires, and retirement. So on the 19th of April, Jake Hook was promoted from a foreman to an assistant construction superintendent, and Elmer Sandoval was promoted from a lead man to a foreman. Then Brandon Pelton on the 26th, he was promoted from a foreman to an assistant construction superintendent, and Rodrigo Hernandez was promoted from a lead man to a foreman. And this is something new with the agency. We, in the past, have only had one construction superintendent, but what we found was staff was really strung out, and we decided to promote two foremen to be our construction superintendents and split the crews to each of the superintendents, and feel this will be beneficial for the whole department as a whole. Then on April 22nd, Victoria Lort, who is present here today, began her career at the agency as Director of Public Affairs and Conservation. So welcome, Victoria. Okay. Again, we're excited to have Victoria here and to see the promotions in the construction department. Then on a final note, so Skip Coleman. Skip is our construction superintendent. He is retiring tomorrow, May 1st is his retirement day. He's been here almost 17 years. Great person, will do anything for the agency, very dedicated, just a great individual. And we will definitely miss him, but we are excited to see him start a new chapter in his life. So he didn't want any fanfare or anything, but I felt I needed to give him a little kudos. Skip is a great guy. Okay, the next item is just the allocation for State Water Project. It has been increased from 30 to 40%. And that was based on some increase in Lake Oroville storage and the last snow survey that occurred on April 1st. And for the agency, that means an increase from 16,725 to 22,300. And it should be noted that if the Delta Conveyance Project had been in place this winter, the State Water Project would have been able to capture an additional 909,000 acre-feet of water since January 1st. So that's quite a bit of water. It's enough for 9.5 million people, or 3.1 million households for a year. The May 7th board meeting has been canceled due to lack of quorum. And our system leaks, pretty standard. Avenida Caballeros again as the leader. The contractor is moving steadily, moving forward with that, and is on schedule now to complete that job. And then the 4 streets in the blue color there, those are currently on our pipeline replacement that board and construction is working on right now. So those should be replaced within the next couple months. And then general managers meetings and activities, just highlight a couple of items here. On the 17th, we had our Tech Transformation Committee quarterly update. And then on the 23rd, we did hold here for department heads and staff who are in a leading type role who need to perform evaluations. We held a workshop on how to write and conduct a evaluation of an employee, which I thought was very informative and I think will be helpful, especially with, we have a lot of staff who are now in roles where they're having to write evaluations and so forth. So to provide that training, I think is crucial. On the 25th, we had our finance committee meeting, and then also on the 25th, we met with the DWA Employee Association regarding negotiations of their contract. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for our general manager, Director Gracia?
No questions. Thank you. Excellent report.
Thanks.
No
Director Blumer?
questions.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
I have no questions. Thanks.
All right, and neither do I. So we can move on now to director's reports on meetings and events attended on behalf of the agency. If each of us could state the date and purpose of the meeting and whether it's compensable, and we'll start with Director Gracia.
I have about 10 of them, but only 3 are compensable. So I'm going to go through the dates and then,
Okay.
anyway, the first, on the 17th, April 17th, Desert Water Agency IT security training. And then on April 17th as well, I attended remotely the State Water Resources Control Board Chromium 6 rulemaking meeting, which was more than 5 hours long, and I watched the whole thing. Thank you. There was a lot of things that were talked about in that meeting. I don't know if I can really, but it's probably the most important meeting I've attended, but then certainly on that subject. As you know, the chairman of the State Water Quality Resource Control Board is from Coachella, Joaquin Escobar. And it appeared to me that the entire state of California relied upon the people from Coachella and Director Estrada from CVWD it was an attempt to pull his heartstrings as being a native from Coachella. They had a string of speakers from Coachella representing the entire state on the issue of trying to stop this rule from being put into place. Throughout the 5-hour hearing, the chairman was really quite eloquent throughout the whole thing, the way he handled it. In the end, he ended up pointing to the $70 million check he just handed him a week before for improvements of the system down in Coachella Valley Water District. And that he has, as a child, the first 18 years of his life, had been drinking water laced with chromium-6 and is constantly concerned about his health and the health of his family and the still continuing strong familial connection with the Coachella Valley. Mission Springs Water District was pointed out at one point in the meeting, only, of all the agencies in the state, only Coachella Valley agencies were. My point is that on that part of it, that all eyes are on this valley in terms of chromium-6 and our response to it. Finally, somebody with some, I don't know, gravitas. I don't. The general counsel for the State Water Resource Control Board declared that stannous chloride doesn't work, but if you want to keep messing around, go ahead, but don't expect an extension in the time you have to tackle the issue, fix the problem. Then during that conversation, 5 hours, several times, I would say at least 4 or 5 times, when there was always a reference to how are we going to pay for this. The one thing that continued to be brought up was consolidation as a solution to financing the fixing this problem in small water systems throughout the state. Chairman Escoval referred to 6 consolidations in the Coachella Valley in just last couple of years. He referred to his $1.6 billion commitment to agencies that are willing to take on the. It felt like they were talking about us. You know, we're the only agency that is not affected by this, but in my view, we're going to be the agency most affected by it. And that's why I thought it would be a good idea to put the brakes on the previous item so that we might consider over the next months, if I'm right, whether or not this agency wants to participate in any part of that, and if we don't, what effect will that have on this agency if the state, and I have no doubt that that's the direction they're going. They're going to use this as a way to eliminate small water systems, and yes, even over 10,000 meters, Mission Springs can't afford to fix. They're still talking about building a $20 or $30 or $40 million headquarters that they can't afford. It's complete irresponsibility that's going on over there. They've been doing it for generations, really, ignoring these realities. Their system is in a state of collapse. And I have no doubt that this is going to come back at us. So now, having said that, I see the look in the eye of the chairman, Mr. President. Now go. That was on the 17th. And then on the 18th, I attended the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority Board meeting. On April 19th, the California Natural Resources Agency, Secretary Wade Crowfoot hosted an event in Sacramento that was very well attended, webinar kind of thing. And that was part of the Aqua series of meetings last month. Also on the 19th, another meeting, the Sites Joint Authority Board and Reservoir Committee meeting, which I'm starting to, I think I can pick those guys in a lineup now, which is what I was hoping to be able. That's why I go to them, trying to figure out who's who and where, how does all this flow and what, you know. And it's nice to start getting a handle on what we're doing here. On the 23rd, I had the CVWD board meeting. The 24th, I think I was on the Zoom with the MSWD Chromium 6 regulation discussion by the board of directors at a special meeting that they had, again, on the 24th. Then on later on the 24th was that meeting at MSWD was at 9 o'clock. And then I think at 1:30, I got here at noon. So the tour started at 1:30, I think, the Palisades tour. Director McKenna and I attended. And I wanted to thank you guys, because the quality of that tour seems to have taken a step up. I don't know if, I think I've been on 3 or 4 tours, and just thank you. And I think I mumbled something to Director McKenna. We sat in the back of the bus. I think I looked it around. I said, this looks like it cost about $3,000. I just pulling a number. And I had to ask myself, is it worth it? And I think the answer is just yes, period. The opportunity that it allows as a board member to be able to watch the staff interact with the public and to helps me. Everyone I go on, I learn something new, which in my view makes it worth the going, and takes the mystery out of this for our public and as a board. How does our public interact with our agency? And as you can see, there's normally in a public agency like this, people are lined up at the microphone to complain, and our job as a board is to make sure we do everything we can to keep that from happening. And of course, that falls on you guys, and you're doing a beautiful job, and I want to thank you for that. Also, the next one, on the 25th, the Desert Valley Business Association Economic Forecast Meeting, and they had an excellent speaker that came from the National Association of Home Builders, I think. I think that's what it's called. That's what it is. Anyway, she came from, I think, from Washington, D.C., and gave an overview on the national housing trends and how they relate to us here in the Coachella Valley. And, all of this kind of stuff kind of works together. What's our future as an agency? Do we have the kind of growth that we need, the possibilities of growth? To be able to continue providing the service that we do at the same level we do today, 20 or 30 years from now. And those are all questions that, as a board, I think we have to remember that we have a long-range responsibility, and there's a lot of things about to happen, and we'll see if it all works out for the best. I think it will, and I just want to thank you guys for all the work that you've done for 60 years, really. When I think, you guys have held this together very nicely, and I'm honored to be here as a board member. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bloomer.
Okay, I only have a couple. I had a tribal mediation meeting on Wednesday, April 24th, and then on Thursday, April 25th, I had the executive meeting and the finance committee meeting.
Okay.
And that is it.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Since the last meeting, I was on the spring tour, and I thought it was excellent. I really liked the way that the staff handled questions from the public. I took the opportunity to quiz some of the members of the public myself on their understanding of what we do and why we do it. They need that tour. Most of them had very vague ideas of where their water comes from. So we've got to keep those up. And it's the only sad part, I think, is there were empty seats on the bus. So maybe we should overbook or have 2 buses next time. But it's excellent. I also attended in a personal capacity Mission Springs Water District meeting where they were discussing Chromium-6, and I will come back to that later. I also attended in-house meetings, the technical committee, finance committee, and this board, and that's it for me.
Thank you. So in addition, I'll start with the first meeting, which was for Region 9, the work group for Region 9 for our event in August in Temecula. That is still in development, but we should be able to announce shortly the program for the day on workforce development. And then I was also on the tour, that was on the 19th, and then on the 24th in the morning, attended the agency's tour, public water tour. I have been on several of these tours at this point. This was probably the best one, I would say, in terms of its organization. The fact that there were a lot of members of the staff who had not seen before, who were presenting for probably the first time, but clearly knew what they were doing. They weren't uncomfortable doing it, and I appreciated that even from the perspective of just staff development. and giving other staff members the opportunity to interface with the public in that manner. I too was a little disappointed that there were empty seats on the bus. I wish there had been a full house, but the folks that, for one, anyone who will ever listen to me, I don't care whether they're standing behind me in the line at the supermarket and we start talking about water, or somebody sitting next to me, I don't know, wherever it is, an event somewhere, and we start talking about water, I always tell them about the tour, and because I think it is really, really important for members of the public to understand, as Secretary Treasurer McKenna alluded to understand, have a really good understanding of where the water comes from, because many people don't. They take it for granted, and I look forward to being on these tours and watching or experiencing the enthusiasm with members of the public in terms of when they start to really understand how it works. And probably heard back from about half a dozen people after Wednesday's tours, thanking me for letting them know about it, and of course wanting to sign up for the fall tour, because of course that's not only as informative in a different manner as far as different topics, but also incredibly beautiful because you get to go to Snow Creek. So again, thank you guys for doing that. I'm really happy to see that we can do that. One comment that did come from a couple of people who attended was the opportunity to involve school groups. Now, probably not on that tour in particular, but whether or not there might be an opportunity to offer this to various schools within our service area, perhaps. And so that got to me thinking about, well, does that also maybe plant the seed for future employees who might consider a career in water? But I'll just throw that out there. And that's it for additional meetings for me. So thank you. Now we can move to item 9, which is director's comments and requests, and we'll start with Director Gracia.
Well, let's beat a dead horse here. I watched a MSWD meeting the other day. Director McKenna spoke as a private person on a subject of chromium-6 and an understanding that he has of testing results that have been talked about. I have been reviewing these inconsistencies, to say the least, that have come out of Mission Springs Water District on the levels of chromium-6 in their wells. And I don't want to turn this agency, or even, I don't even want to look at staff right now when I'm looking at the board and public that might listen in, to turn this agency into a police agency for pumpers. But I don't see how, as a public, we can allow so many inconsistencies to come out of a public water agency about the levels of chromium-6 in their well test results. I don't know. I know that the State Water Resources Control Board, Colorado River Region, at least requires their public speakers, at least. I don't know if their board members are under oath at every meeting, but when a former board member from MSWD was chairing that committee, that regional board, she swore in people before she allowed them to speak. And she didn't do that when she was on the board at MSWD. She's gone now. My point is that as a public, we're obligated to have trust in our public agencies and the reporting of with their water quality standards. To that end, I don't think this agency should be involving itself, but from this dais, I feel it's an opportunity for me to say that I'll be looking for a way to enforce those, the requirement to be honest. I know that the district attorney's office has established an agency or a special prosecution unit about issues that could be loosely related to that kind of activity. I don't know if when these tests are taken that people have to sign under penalty of perjury. I don't know that that's the case. I would like it to be the case that every step of the way it's treated like evidence, and that if a public employee says one thing and the documents say another, that there be that be challenged, you know? There is too much at stake. And with that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Director Bloomer,
No comments or requests, thanks.
thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Well, I don't always agree with Director Grashow, but I did attend the Mission Springs Water District meeting on Chromium 6, and I requested them to deal with this problem with openness and transparency, because to be blunt, they haven't been open and transparent about the issue. My opponent in the last election released information saying Chromium 6 was not a problem. Both of your opponents,
Right.
Director Grashow, said the same thing. Amber Duff, Director Duff at Mission Springs, had an opponent who said the same thing. And all of them were disingenuous. And Mission Springs District as a whole has been disingenuous on this issue. In the meeting that I attended, a consultant told them, well, you can have 10.4 Chromium 6 and round it down to 10, and you'll be in compliance. And you can delay testing until April 1st, 2025, and your first result could be up to 40 because you're going to average the 4 quarters. And you get away with that. I mean, he didn't use the term get away with that, but it's not openness and it's not transparency. You know, I want to see Mission Springs put out the results. They're going to have a significant problem, maybe $20 million per well was the estimate I heard, but actually it's more like 40. They have 10 or 12 wells that are over limit, and they're looking at a bill of, $50 million or more. They don't have it, so they're going to look for solutions. And I said, in my personal capacity, I said, the other districts in the area may be part of the solution. The aqueduct goes right around the back of Desert Hot Springs. There's Colorado River water in it. They need to talk to Met. They may need a turnout from that Colorado River. And we've got one. We may be part of the solution. We also do not have a Chromium 6 issue in the wells that we use. But we have no interconnection with Mission Springs. We can't supply them water. But that may be part of the solution. In any case, this is a significant issue. You don't have to be a cancer survivor like me to worry about it. I've had 10 cancer surgeries. And it upsets me that a public agency puts out misinformation and disinformation the way they do. So openness, transparency, get on with it. Let's realize we have this problem. You cannot evade the responsibility of tomorrow by not doing it today. The responsibility is coming. It's here. So let's deal with it. Let's deal with it openly, transparently, and ask for the help you need. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I have some thoughts about this, but I'm not going to share them right now. I think this might be more appropriate for the joint executive committee between the two agencies, but I appreciate the comments made by Director Grasha and Secretary Treasurer McKenna. And with that, we will now move into closed session. It is about 10 minutes of 9. If we, as a board and executive staff, could meet in the boardroom at 9 o'clock, and then we will be back to close the public meeting. Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Right, welcome back. We have finished closed session. We're back in open session. I can say that we had no reportable actions were taken. And with that, I'll adjourn this meeting, and thank you to the public and thank you to staff, and we'll see everyone in 3 weeks.